We now continue with our week-long series, Brazil Uncovered and Latin America's largest economy. It will be the focus of the world because they are hosting the 2014 World Cup.
I was very happy when Brazil was chosen to host the World Cup. But now with all the problems we see, like the corruption allegations, all of this disturbs me.
Brazil has other priorities for this moment, as investing in health, improving education, and other things.
People complain about the World Cup now, but we should have said something years ago when the country presented its candidacy. Now that it's going to happen, I think we have to do our best to be great.
I think our country is not ready for such thing. I think we'll be ashamed in front of the world.
Football fans will be speaking out on Brazil's duties for the 2014 World Cup. The government there is spending billions on stadiums, and many Brazilians feel that the money would be better spent elsewhere. Callebs reports.
The race is on in the city of Manaus, in the heart of Brazil's rainforest. A sprint to finish this new soccer stadium. Manaus is one of a dozen cities selected to host World Cup soccer games when the event comes to Brazil next year. The country is spending a fortune, close to $4 billion to build new stadiums. Money that a leading sports journalist, Juco Kfouri, says could be wasted.
É importante lembrar o seguinte, de certa maneira, o Brasil está reproduzindo o que a África do Sul fez, construindo estádios que se transformarão em elefantes brancos, pelo menos 5.
Brazil says it has researched that the games will bring in close to $11 billion from tourists abroad and those at home. But to do that, Brazil will need to make 20 times as much as South Africa did hosting the last World Cup. Few, including Kfouri, think that will happen.
Eu compreendo que estrangeiro chegue em Manaus e se encante. Mas não sei se você sabe, em Manaus não tem times nem da primeira nem da segunda divisão brasileira de futebol. Os estádios vão ficar as moscas.
If he's right, a huge setback for the government. They are spending hundreds of millions on this one stadium alone.
Manaus and the rainforest will be on display when the World Cup rolls into Brazil in 2014. Construction on this 44,000-seat stadium needs to be finished by December. All this so Manaus can host 4 games during the World Cup. This is a city that is growing rapidly, and Brazil is banking on tourists making the trek to the far northwestern portion of this country.
Miguel Capobianco has a tough job, overseeing all World Cup events in the Manaus area.
E eu tenho certeza que após essa visibilidade que Manaus vai ganhar durante a Copa do Mundo, nós possamos ser alternativa, inclusive, de investimentos, de novos investimentos que possam acontecer, de grandes grupos que possam enxergar Manaus como alternativa também.
So far, this has been the biggest story associated with the Games. Summertime protests that Brazil is spending billions on soccer, and demonstrators claim shirking responsibilities when it comes to providing better public services, such as schools, healthcare, roads, and so on.
Eu acho que nesse particular, sem nenhum derrotismo, o Brasil está dando passo maior do que as suas pernas.
It all comes down to tourists and new stadiums. Brazil is building them, so people better come with fat wallets. Or the financial hangover from this big event may be its enduring legacy.
Callebs is here in the studio first. And look, Sean, I have a personal note to share with you first. First of all of us feel you've done just a wonderful job. I mean, it's been a wonderful experience, obviously, in Brazil, and you've shown us things that we normally, obviously, would not see. So it's quite fitting we ended on a somewhat of a happier note on sports at the end of the week. The World Cup, the Olympics, these are big events, but the criticism is also very big as well. And a lot of people are saying it's flat out just a waste of money.
Yeah, without question. I think we kind of detailed that, and to a large degree, FIFA, the entity that's overseeing the World Cup, said you need to build or have 9 stadiums ready. Well, Brazil took it further. They said we're going to have 12. It smacks of cronyism. It smacks of, all right, let's get this in for my constituents. We'll give them some jobs. And in the long run, who's going to suffer? Those tens of thousands of people you saw pouring into the streets. There is so much at stake here. They're sinking something like $12, $13 billion getting ready for this. If they don't have a massive return on this, 20 times as much as South Africa made during the last World Cup, this is going to go down in history as a complete fiasco.
Almost every major stadium that's ever been built in the world, including here in the United States, very rarely makes money unless you're the New York Yankees. And so that criticism is probably very fair. I guess the bigger question is, what's going to happen to these stadiums after they're built and after the World Cup and after the Olympics are over?
Well, it's a football-crazy country, soccer-crazy country. There are 9 of those stadiums that will continue to host matches regularly, and they'll be used. But the one in the Manaus area that we focused on, Brasilia, Cuiabá, Natal, those areas, like we heard our sports journalists say, they could draw flies. Manaus, they don't even have a first or second tier soccer team, football team. They are floating the idea of having jiu-jitsu tournaments there. One judge said, well, maybe we can use it to house prisoners or process prisoners. I mean, come on, $335 to process prisoners, $335 million to process, that's insane.
How about some good news? Some critics would argue that, yes, the stadiums might be a loss, but the roads and the bridges and the people and the jobs and the economic benefit to the region is a good thing. Is there any merit to that?
Well, if they were doing that, it'd be a great thing. But the problem is they're not doing that. They're building these stadiums. They're doing a lot of other stuff while that part of the infrastructure that you just highlighted sits idly by. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of different stories down there. For example, they can grow and harvest soybean, corn, load it into a truck cheaper and faster than almost any place on earth. However, getting it to a port to ship overseas to China or somewhere else, no way. Oftentimes it sits in traffic jams for 2 weeks. It rots. They have to just unload it. They're not doing a good job of taking care of their infrastructure. And when people travel there to see the games, it could be a nightmare. If you look at Tokyo, 400 and some odd gates at its major airport, Sao Paulo, 50.
So, fair enough. The critics have their say. What's the government responding with?
Well, the government's responding with that survey that they just floated out about a month ago saying, you know what, we're going to generate $11 billion when the World Cup comes here. And on top of that, we're going to build on that success once the Olympics come in 2016. Well, they better, because there is so much at stake here. You saw this frustration boil over this past summer. If it moves on and the World Cup doesn't go well, they lose money, Brazil especially gets ousted early, you're going to see a lot of frustrated people. People love soccer, and Brazil knows how to put on a party. That part of it should go very well. But our World Cup fans, are those the kind of people that come and get in a riverboat in the mouth of the Amazon, then take a 14-day trip to the heart of the jungle to watch one match in that stadium? That's what they're counting on.
The controversy of money, sports, and politics all colliding. Sean Callebs, excellent work this week. Thank you very much.